I'm going to start recording, and of course, we have the ability to edit this before it gets published on Sunday. So
I can see I am winning the white hair race. So at least I'm winning something. It's all due to him, you know.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to the following week Gurit Forum for 2020. And, you know, today we have, basically it's our first recording, but it's being pre-recorded, so that's okay. And we're going to be talking about the latest advances in the IMOCA class, and there's an awful lot to talk about. I know, Juan, you were talking about the most recent trial event last week, and it sounds like your boats were going plenty fast.
Well, in some conditions, yes. In other conditions, I mean, these IMOCAs are, you know, some boats are better suited for some conditions, and other boats are better suited for others. So I think that every boat will have its moment, really. I think they were quick in some conditions, but not in all, not in other conditions. I think Guillaume's boats were really quick in, when you have to go quick, I think his boats are really quick.
Awesome. And I wanted to just bring that up because that's the most recent trial of the boats. And our guests are Antoine Mermod, who's president of the IMOCA class, Juan K, one of the designers of many boats, but we're talking about IMOCAs, and same with Guillaume Verdier. The two of you seem to be running into each other in different classes and different events. But the one thing, we'll get into the technical side of some of the changes since 2016 and the recent class meeting in August. But one thing I just wanted to ask right away is, what a year. It's a Vendée Globe year, and we had shutdowns all spring, and it's not the usual year before a Vendée Globe or the year of a Vendée Globe. So I just wanted to start out by asking the whole panel, and particularly the designers, is there a concern about reliability in this year's Vendée Globe because there hasn't been the normal race trialing? You know, there was the Vendée Arctic, but the season's been kind of truncated. So how have the teams dealt with the limited training?
Go ahead.
maybe
I don't know who starts first.
Yeah, go ahead, Guillaume.
Well, I think the guys had reasonable amount of time to train. All the teams trained, and we saw a few issues. It's always the same story. All the boats are training for the TGV, and some cannot achieve to be on the line, so they can do another race. They do 2 to 4 transatlantic before going. You know, all these machines, they can be broken down. It's like a pair of skis. I'm always saying the same stuff. It's like a pair of skis. If you have a very good skier, you can break it at the bottom of the heel. So, you know, when they go around the world, normally they've got to be careful. It's not unbreakable, you know. It's not an unbreakable toy.
Right.
They've got to be careful. Last time it was the same story. What has changed now is that boats have become really unbearable. So slowly, year after year, we go faster. So the energy in a boat is going to the square root of the energy, and the energy goes more because we go faster. So we size the boat to a higher limit. What has changed now is that the boats are truly unbearable for the guys inside. So we'll see. It's likely they go crazy for a third of the race and then they survive. So it's always the same story.
And
they've got to preserve the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. So that really starts to become the limit. And Juan, this year, have there been any limits in terms of the things that you want to test out and evolve the boats?
Yeah. Well, our case is quite specific because of the two new boats we did. One was sort of confirmed and built really late, which is Corum. So it never really managed. I mean, it has its own calendar because obviously it's a very late project. It's a very good project, but late. And then with the Arequipa break, we had all sorts of issues with the foils that conditioned completely the original planning and schedule. So the boat or that program sort of had to go into plan B and then even plan C, if you will. So our case, or the case of our Kappa break, is quite specific. It's definitely not a model to follow, but you're talking about reliability, and yeah, it's tough because these boats are sailing at such a high level of performance or efficiency, if you will, that everything about them, from their design to construction, needs to be to the level at which they are being sailed, and at that level, there's no forgiveness. Then if you make mistakes, or if you have construction techniques which are not ideally or adequate to the level at which all these structures are being pushed, then you end up, it doesn't forgive you very quickly. You bite the dust, and so I think that the class or the new version of the class rules has pushed the designs to be or require a very high level of technology and construction, and not all the projects were able to foresee that and adapt to that level. Sometimes sort of reverting to old techniques or old ways of doing things, and when you push it a bit too much, it doesn't forgive you.
Cool, understood. And Antoine, you guys had your class meeting in August, right? And there were some rules voted on. The one thing that I wanted to dig into right now is two things. First, one big takeaway from that meeting I saw was that they didn't vote in to have the rudder elevators, the horizontal foils maybe on the rudders to help control pitch or stability. And the other thing I noticed that there's just a lot of events coming up too. So first of all, just tell me, just briefly at that meeting, why that seemed like a big move. Why weren't the rudder elevators voted in?
Actually, we are all convinced that the elevator is the next step for our boat. But the way the boats are sailing now with the big foil, or are flying now, it's the early beginning, and we are not really, we don't know all the, we've got to improve and to understand better where the boats are, and to go to the next step. And the other point is that the economical situation is not really clear for the next 2 years. And these two reasons together make that for sure the boat will fly, and for sure in the future we will have the elevator. But it was a little bit too early to open this window.
Cool. Well, then let's take a look between 2016 and 17. That was, the Vendée Globe was 74 days. Now someone's talking about 67 days. I know you all have run your calculations. Guillaume, what has changed to add, to take a week off of Vendée Globe since 2016? To just a couple key things.
Well, to be honest, it's very dependent on the meteorology system, and I said that they go crazy for 1/3 of the week of the race, and then they go like a bit more cruisy in the south, and then they survive to come back. So it's all about how much they manage to push the boat around, and if they were managing to doing like on the ocean race, surely they go below 70 days, 67 days, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then after this, you can have a certain amount of meteorological system going wrong. Statistically, so if you want to be extremely fast, it's like crossing the Atlantic. If you really want to beat the record today of the Atlantic, for example, you've got to go faster than the meteorological system. It means you start in front, and you keep on, and you try to grab the one forward, which is not really easy. So surely we'll be able to do that in the future. But it's we could give any numbers, to be honest. If we do statistical approach, probably these values of a bit less than 70 days is correct. So we have to see. But I don't really mind how long they take. You know, it doesn't matter. It's not really the way we do more statistical approach to know how long time they're going to spend upwind and how long time they're going to spend downwind. You know, I'm more interested in that one.
Right. And so can we point to a very specific design features since 2016 that have improved the performance in that balance between the percentage of upwind and downwind? And maybe there was more leaning on upwind or leaning on downwind for this year?
Well, on my side, you know, we managed to understand we've got better tools. We all have more or less the same tools. We've got better tools. We understand better how it works, distribution of load. I mean, split of the load on the hull shape. So we don't make hull shapes really less draggy when they are in full displacement. We make them less draggy when they are kind of skimming. The difficult thing I find this time was to try to understand what heel angle we have to design the boat for. With huge foils, you know, the boats are not heeling very much, probably 8-10 degrees, 15 degrees maybe. But if it's always like more than 10 degrees, you will design a hull shape a bit more U-shape, like I did actually, maybe like Juan did as well. If you think you stay flat all the time, you go more for hull shapes like we do on the America's Cup. You know, they don't heel over. So it's more trying to understand how the guys are going to be sailing single-handed, and also a lot of downgraded performance. You know, the boats won't be at the top all the time. Sometimes the foils are breaking, so you want to make sure that the guys are safe when the foils are breaking, and all these stories. So it's really a discussion with the sailors how they see the thing as well, and you know, they all have their experience and we have our own experience. I don't know. I'd be keen to listen to Juan on that subject. You may have different view.
Yeah.
I fully agree with what Guillaume said. I think it's the dynamics of the dynamic behavior, how these boats sail are quite new and uncertain. You know, you can predict to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, what he was referring to and how much these boats can be pushed or will be pushed, at the end of the day, you still have a 60-foot system that needs to fit on a sea stake, you know, and so the behavior of these boats in flat water is very, very different than in sort of ocean waves. And to a certain extent, a lot of the design was trying to account for this ocean attitude. In my case, even though we tried to foresee it, we didn't fully manage to understand it until the boats went sailing, and we started having some data from the sailing. I still believe that it's a bit incognita. I mean, I'm not sure, at least I speak personally, it is fully known or at least fully understand what the dynamic behavior of these boats will be in sort of ocean waves such as the one in the Southern Ocean, you know, 23 to 25 knot waves, you know, with very big wavelengths and so forth. So I don't know how much they'll be able to push. It's still a bit of an unknown, but I think the dynamics of the boat do condition a lot the way it's being pushed. So you were talking about routings and navigation. I think that they will be looking to wave data as much as wind data, you know, for example. So, you know, probably if you do a route in anything between, I would say, 14 and 20 knots of wind speed in relatively flat water, you would have a speed potential which is greater than in 25 knots and very big seas. So I think that the navigation things are quite important on the routing, and that has been a change, I believe. I mean, I wasn't really part of the last Vendée Globe, so Guillaume can say better than me, but I think that you were asking about the changes between the past and the now, and I think that is one of them. You know, I think that the way the boats will be navigated and the way that the dynamic behavior of the boat impacts the performance is certainly new to me, at least.
Fantastic. And speaking of changes, I mean, I know Juan, in your past, you've been known to think well outside of the current framework of a design rule, and your boats have looked quite different than what has come before. And same thing with you, Guillaume. And when we look at the actual foils being used between in 2016 and now, we're used to seeing in a design trajectory of things looking dramatically different between designers and then narrowing in on a shape, right? And in this case, the foils still, to me, look a lot different from boat to boat. Maybe both of you can explain your own design philosophy when it comes to foils.
Shall I start, Guillaume? Or?
Yeah, sure.
All ears.
Well, I mean, I think
we all understand.
It's a tricky question that requires a very long answer. So I'm not sure. I'll try to simplify it by saying that I don't think that the perfect foil exists. You know, so you have foils that match some kind of performance. If you had a chance to change foils in a very efficient and rapid way, you would, like in a video game, then you would, you know. So it's all a matter of compromise. And in the case of the Vendée Globe or solo sailing, I think that through that equation, it adds up the compromise of easy of use, or how easy you using the foils, or probability of breakage and all sorts of fatigues and all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, it's a trade-off between two forces, you know, a vertical component and a lateral component. You kind of always seeking for the vertical force, so long as you can produce it efficiently, and efficiency comes with speed, of course. But then at certain angles of truing angle, you also need a more or less big component of side force or lateral force. So I suppose that you design the foils to try to be as all-round or as efficient as possible in creating those two components. But it's, at least to me, it's very difficult to come out with a foil that does that well all the time. So I think you need to make decisions. And so that's when you trade foils for more like a downwind or more towards like a upwind friendly or close hold friendly boat where you need more side force. But something really interesting happens on this IMOCA, because the key is also quite important. The keel angle is quite important in that equation. But something happens around 130 true in angle, you know, wider than that, it's almost like you don't need any side force. You're probably even happy to create some leeway, so you load the keel a little bit more. And then inside 130, and certainly when you get to under 110 true in angle, your requirement of side force is completely different. So you need to trade these things off, and so that's from the side force side. And then there is the size of the foil, or when do you want this boat to start taking off, and so you have this trade-off of having a foil which is fairly big, let's say, and so the boat takes off early, and then produces a fast boat in the medium, light air, medium conditions, which could be a bit like where our Kepa Prek is now. And then you have foils which are probably, they take off slightly later, but they are more prone to higher speeds. And then when the boats start going over 25 or 27 knots, then those foils are probably more adapted to speed. So, you know, in terms of side force and in terms of taking off, or, you know, where you position the boat to be more efficient, the foil, sorry, to be more efficient, sort of conditions the design. So there isn't a foil which works well for, at least I haven't found one that works well throughout.
Well, in one sentence or a little drawing on your sketch pad, what's your favorite shape right now in terms of, well, I guess there's two shapes. There's the drawn out length shape, and then there's a cross section which probably changes along the length of the foil.
Well, I understand what Guillaume, I think I understand what Guillaume did, and I think he's very smart. You know, he has obviously played very well with this notion of vertical and side force. he's taking it further and using molded curvature to reduce the actual dynamic curvature or deflection of the foil, which is very smart. So I understand what he's done, and his boats are going to be extremely quick, particularly when it starts getting fast. Our boat, particularly our Kepa Preg, will be in its best mode when the wind is probably a little bit earlier. I think the boat would take off a bit earlier and would have its chances on more medium winds. So again, you know, I don't think there is a perfect foil, but you know, I think that I like what Guillaume has done. It's pretty cool.
Well, Guillaume, tell me your favorite
Juan
shape.
is always sending me flowers. He's really cool. I'm not joking. But I think we all understood the same thing, and he said it all. What I can add to what Juan is said, which is perfect, I think is we have a complexity with a mast that is one design, and we have to play with that game. And it's our job. And actually, if I can send flowers, Juan is quite good at playing with the game of the rule normally. And so, you know, they sell the boat for 30 ton meters. It's like the data sheet. We all think there's you know, a dynamic above that you can take. We all think is so we all expected, you know, the mast to go further than that, and then there's a factor of safety. So we all made a bit of a bet, but so because we didn't have the design of the mast when he designed the boat, so it's we just have to know the data sheet that is given to us, and so that's a bit of a complexity. And so some boats will have chosen to make a foil that is giving extremely high righting moment capability, but that you have to pull the foil inside or rotate it or whatever, bring it in to avoid breaking the mast more or less. So, and I think Occitan played that game. So I believe that Occitan, for example, if he leaves his foil out, he will break the mast. Maybe.
Much writing moment.
So but he's not stupid. He put the alarm, like, so everyone did that. They've got the alarm and they pull the foil in. So the game is trying to know what level you put the alarm and how much you can rely on the guy to be reactive, you know, and because you have to go around the world. So I think there's a bit of this game. And then another 2 points that I can add is myself, I played the game a little bit of when the foil is raising the boat because we don't have the rudder. Well, it's ventilating a little bit, so it's losing a lot of its efficiency, and the boat has to skim a little bit. If the guy wants, he can skim on the foil, which degrade a lot of the performance, but maybe it's okay to sell single-handed. So I played a bit this game. Then, you know, but Juan's foil are really in a way nice because they dig into the water a little better, and they pierce the water with a better angle, so they are quite tolerant to heel. So that's quite good. Really, the one that is very different is the one of Occitan that probably is quite good in the very light. In heavy seas, it'd have to be very careful for the mast, to my opinion. That's only my opinion. I may be wrong. Then you've got the all foils. So just the difference with the all foils is, I think this time we put more or less the foil to the normal to the load, you know, so one plane is doing the reaction between the vertical and the lateral. So one made it more circular and myself more flat. But in the previous campaign, we did split it in two, you know, like the tip on the bottom of the shaft. So the bottom of the shaft was doing the vertical and the tip was doing the side force. So that's really the difference, but it always insert the same stuff.
What about boats like Sam Davies boats? What are the potential of a boat that's just behind, but
It's so she's got an old boat of the previous generation. That was the old Banque Populaire, and so that's the same foil as the first generation of the second generation. Yeah, so I mean, I did what I thought was the best at the time I did it, which was not very long ago. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're starting to run out of a little bit of time. So one question I had is on the design side of things. Are there any designers besides each other, maybe younger designers, that you both are keeping your eye on what they're doing? Newer designers on the IMOCA scene?
Ooh, I hope so. I hope there is.
Because you have the white hair.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stop. You know, we're gonna have to stop. And well, some guys working, I guess, in your office, and some guys in my office. And I don't have an office actually, but like, you know, Bobby Kleinschmidt working with me at Team New Zealand would certainly be interested. There'll be some guys, you know, on Sam Manuel is probably doing some nice work, even though he's more or less the same age as we are. Mm-hmm. There'll be plenty of guys, you know, now it's a generation of geek, so they're really good at artificial intelligence and this kind of, you know, programming in Python and all that. So it would be a good time for us to go away.
Well, on the artificial intelligence side, and I did want to step into this. We've been talking about design features of the boats. I don't know what the term you used, Guillaume, but it was like intolerable, and I remember talking to Sam Davies, and she was saying that one of the biggest changes she made to the inside of her boat was moving the handholds from up high to down on the ground, because she's just crawling around all the time. But yeah, that makes me think a lot about intelligent autopilots. So do you think that you guys can design a boat that's crazy fast, and you can have alarms that can tell the skippers when to pull it, you know, pull back a little bit on the righting moment or the sail power? But if the autopilot can't steer well enough, you know, your actuators or your sensors or whatever, then none of it really works that well, right? So what are the advances in autopilots that have happened in the last 4 years?
Maybe Antoine, you're good at. Antoine, you're the best. He's the real sailor, you know. We always talk, but he should jump in. He knows all the teams.
Yeah, tell us.
The point, I disagree a little bit with your analysis, because the way these guys, the skipper, are sailing the boat, it's the anticipation. Actually, the quality and the solution to be able to sail this very quick boat is to be 1 or 2 times in advance or 4 times in advance. And then you've got your plan in your mind, and then you follow the plan and you update the plan all the time. And it's not an autopilot or an alarm that will make that the boat will be faster. It's just because the ability of the skipper to be at the right time and within the timing. Then it's not a robo race. It's I would say it's the guys that will be a few times in advance that could be the winner, yes, right, with such boat.
Cool. And that makes sense to me. We have about 5 minutes left. There are a couple other topics that I wanted to jump on besides just the technical side of things. But since we've been talking about just in terms of the human element of it, what's the human limit on putting up with getting bounced around? I get down below. Has there been any accommodation for the skippers in terms of that kind of comfort down below?
I think it's been evolving. I think that nobody really anticipated how rough the ride will be, even though everybody knew it would be rough. In our case, it's been evolving with knowledge, with sailing, and yeah, things in the interiors of the boat have been adapted to the more they knew the boat. Yeah, so the comfort, reduction of miscomfort, if you will, is I think is quite important.
But it always seems like it's the last thing on the budget to study, right? In terms of light
But
below?
it's just that we don't know how to answer that. But what I can say is the guys are sleeping in bean bags. They don't really sleep in banks anymore. In the Volvo, they will be forced to go in banks because there's not enough room. If the ocean race goes normally, they have to have some kind of banks, but single-handed, they go in bean bags because they are facing, the head is facing the front to avoid having, you know, shocks like that. So they can land their head on some kind of soft. And you see some sailors now are sailing upside down, and this is where it goes a little too far, probably, you know, where they are sailing, watching a screen, and they are watching the stern of the boat to avoid the uncomfort of the head movement, right. Which I find a bit weird, even, you know, to be on the watch. But that's how they go.
Right. And Juan, how about your? Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold on that one because we're running out of time. Two last quick questions. One of them for Antoine, and we have to keep the answer pretty short, like 30 seconds or so. The opportunities for women in the IMOCA class. This seems like it's a big year for the Vendée Globe, and I know that all the top women sailors that I know are just as strong and just as smart as the men sailors that I see in the IMOCA class. Do you see more opportunities for women sailors in the IMOCA in the next cycle?
Yeah, for sure, especially with the ocean race, because you've got one female sailor within each crew, and then it's the best way for them to jump on this boat and then continue to the Vendée Globe. And you know, at the next Vendée Globe, we've got 6 female skippers, which is really good. And just to finish, last weekend we had this race in Lorient, and the result was the first boat was Charal, and next was 3 female skippers. Then I think they are really on the best way to win the Vendée Globe.
Great. Well, that's a fantastic answer. And we've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds left. Juan, what kind of sailing are you doing? What excites you right now in your own personal sailing? Are you getting to sail yourself?
I'm sailing a starboat, actually. I won the Italian district and Benetti trophy last weekend. So
congratulations.
I'm very far from flying, but I enjoy that sailing a lot. Yeah.
Cool. And how about you, Guillaume?
So I'm about to launch my boat in Auckland, and so my boat is a bit of a funny story. I bought this boat 5,000 Kiwi dollar in 10 years or 15 years ago, and it was a wreck, and I fixed it. And it happens that it's the first boat of Broussard that has a keel. It's a half tonner, so it's really his first boat. It's 1975, and it's a sister ship of the first one, and half tonner, 8.2 meters, and it's a wooden boat. So I'm gonna launch her probably next week. Finish repainting, and that's just to cruise around.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna have to end it like that. Thank you all for joining. That was a fantastic forum, and we'll be in touch with you guys later and check in with you as we get closer to the Vendée Globe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, ciao. Thank
Salut.
you.
Salut tous.
Ciao.
Salut Antoine, salut Juan.
Ciao.
Salut Chris.